audience for it. So, the way that it works is this is a 360-degree camera. If you guys are talking, the camera's going to be looking at you. So we do not want talking back here because we want it to focus on them. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay. At the end, we will have questions. I would really like some lively questions. Any question is a decent one, but keep it pertinent to the topic. Okay. Each one of these presentations is going to last about a half an hour, but it's loaded with some really good stuff. Okay, so pay attention, try to remember your questions. If you have to write it down, that's just fine. But this will be rebroadcast on the First Minnesota site probably for years to come. So be the best audience that you can, have the best questions that you can, and be prepared that you want your questions to be archived for the future generations of First coming up. Does that make sense to all you guys? Okay. Sounds good. How's our time? Good. And are we up and live? All right. You're on. Where you start? Like an intro? You said we have an intro, so. Yeah. Right. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to have you here. What we're going to go over is this is the rookie track, or the track for newer teams, is the way we like to call it. So we're going to go over a lot of material here for what you need to really approach First in a professional manner and be efficient in the process. We're going to be covering a 6-week survival guide. We're going to be covering drivetrains. We're going to be covering a little bit of electrical. And through the process over the 3 days that we'll be doing this, we'll actually be going all the way into beta testing, where we'll be showing you how the new Connect system interfaces and works with the First robots. And we actually have a robot that we programmed to be able to affect how that programming works. So it should be quite interesting. We hope you enjoy it. Our first ones up here are from Team 2169 out of Prior Lake Savage, Minnesota, and they're doing the 6-week survival guide. Here they are.
Hi everyone, we're students from Team 2169. I'm Alex Pasafero, I'm head driver for the team.
And I'm Tyler Thompson, and I'm head of strategy.
And I'm Nathan Cars, I'm captain on the team.
So today we're going to be going over the 6-week survival guide. Now what the 6-week survival guide is as it says, it's a rough or handbook to the first experience, meaning the 6 weeks of the build season, as well as the preliminary competition season.
Now, to start things off, you're going to have Kickoff. You're going to go down to a facility that'll be presenting the game for this year. Now, after you've seen the game and you've gotten your kit apart, you're going to want to start brainstorming immediately. And when I say that, I mean on the bus ride home or even a couple minutes after the game has been presented. Now, once you actually get back to your place of work, you want to open up your kit apart and take inventory. Now, when you do this, you only want to have 2 to 3 people working on it at a time. Because the more hands you get in there, the more confusing things are going to get, and you can start losing pieces. And that you really don't want to be allocated. And also keep in mind that you only have a few days to obtain those missing parts that you actually don't have. Now, on the side, you should also have a group building a chassis. This is quite useful because it gives you a physical model for any of the designs you're going to have for later. It also gives you a jump on your build season. Assign a rules master that should hopefully go through the entire book and know a rough sketch of all the rules. They can then, if there's any disputes over a ruling in the game, you can go to that person and get the interpretation on that rule. Now later in the week, you're going to want to actually have a design meeting. That's where you take everything you brainstormed and put it to paper, or as we prefer, a whiteboard, and then pick your favorite pieces of that robot. Now, I know you guys may have heard about CAD, and it's quite useful. But it can be a little grueling, and you might stretch yourself a little bit. So if you feel like you might not be ready for CAD, leave it for another year. References like Chief Delphi are great resources. If you have any questions on ideas or concepts, you can hop on the forum and get any answers you need. So it's very useful to put scouts on these as soon as you can.
Alright, in your second week, this is your designing and prototyping. During this week, you want to finalize your design as soon as possible through the design meeting. And remember, throughout the presentation, we're going to say, keep it simple. Simple is always better, and if you keep it simple, it'll make things easier throughout the build. Now, once you have designs that you decided on with your team, start prototyping. Whether this is using wood or PVC or anything that you can get your hands on that's easy to work with, start putting the individual mechanisms into the physical world to check whether these certain parameters that you have set for them work in the real world. Whether it be having a shooter work properly or having the pieces of an arm articulate correctly. Just get them out into the real world and have them physical where you can tweak them or work on their design. Once you have these prototypes finished, get the necessary materials needed for the accepted design. whether this means going down to your local Home Depot or going online to AnyMart or McMaster. Get the pieces you need for your robot as soon as possible. Now, once you have all your pieces, you should start building past the chassis. Now, for building, it's nice to have a machine shop, but it is by no means required. If you have access to one piece of machinery, King Tech recommends you get a drill press, because that's the machine we use more than any other. Now, even if you can't get a drill press, it is still possible to build a robot. King Tech's first year, we built an entire robot with only hand tools in a barn. So it is very possible. Now, once you have your building materials gathered, weigh them. This involves just taking a scale, putting on plywood, and then taking everything you think you may have and putting it on this scale. That includes nuts, bolts, washers, anything you think you might use. This way you'll avoid going over the 120-pound weight limit and just having a well-thought-out robot overall.
And now you're on week 3 and 4, your halfway point where a lot of stuff's going to get rolling, or you're going to be building pretty much a large majority of this robot. It really helps to have great tips and tricks just to make small mundane things that can seem like you're doing them 1,000 times over and over again. Tips to help them make it go faster. One of them is always reinforce what you're drilling. What that means is if you have a sheet metal and you have to drill through the hand drill, now metal flexes, and if you have it reinforced with a piece of 2x4 wood, what that does is if you drill through it, it's a lot easier. I've had it sometimes, I've gone through metal just one after the next, because it's reinforced. If it's not reinforced, that metal will actually flex and just makes it a lot more difficult for a job that should be fairly easy. Now, when you are drilling, there's a problem with burrs, and what that is on the corners or the edges of those holes that you drill in sheet metal, there's going to be sharp metal fringe on that, and that's actually not first regulation safe. They want you to have your robot safe to be on the field and be operated by other humans. And so what you want to do is deburr those holes. And what deburring is you can either get a tool or you can use a larger drill bit. You take a drill bit, you push it down on the top of the hole, like you can see in these pictures, and you can just carve it out by hand and make the hole's edges smooth and safe for hands to go over it. A quick tip about for tempering your steel. Tempering steel is having really hot metal being cooled down rapidly. What that causes is for the metal to get really tough and making it really difficult to drill through. We're in Minnesota, so we live in an ice box, or at least Minnesotans do. So we think we throw in a snowbank. Well, make sure you don't accidentally temper your steel because it's hard to find out the trial and error way. It can be pretty embarrassing sometimes. For your electrical people, because you're thinking, okay, you got to build everything. Well, everyone's back into this: electrical, mechanical, and programming. You want to look out for your wires and for your electrical people. Your wires need to be protected because if you have a moving part on that robot that comes down, let's say it chops off the main power to your power distribution board or has live 2 terminals to your battery open, that can be a big hazard. One, it can completely kill power to your robot, but 2, even more dangerously, you might accidentally charge the frame of that robot, which could short out and just be a safety hazard. And like Nathan said, you want to look out for your weight, but you want to over-engineer. Now, what over-engineering means, you might think, okay, you want to keep it simple. Well, yes, you want to keep it simple, but over-engineering really means, let's say you have something that's supposed to lift 20 pounds, and its weight limit to lifting 20 pounds is 20 pounds. Well, that's not over-engineered, because if it's going to be really close to the limit, as soon as it's going to break. Because you're going to be putting that robot in the field, you're going to be testing the robot's limits. So you want to have something that can lift, let's say, 50 pounds, and it really only has to lift 20 pounds. And as always, simple is better. We're going to say it a lot. It's going to get annoying, it's going to get repetitive, but it's something that King Tech really has found is useful, and every once in a while, like a year, we have to forgot about that, and we now know from trial and error that it's a lot better to keep it simple.
Alright, this is your 5th week. We labeled it the fixing. Because during this week, your robot will break. Accept it, it's going to happen. It happens to us all the time. And it happens to every team. During this week, it is really your crunch time to get that robot finished building, and the term never see the light of day really applies. So be in your shop working for hours on end after school, getting this robot put together. Now, something to keep in mind, if it works, don't touch it. It's just a good thing to have in mind for all members, whether it be build team or anybody. Just say, oh, it's a working piece of the robot, let's touch it, test it. But then it breaks, and you're spending time fixing that piece instead always a good thing. During this week, it is your goal to finish building. Well, it's a good goal to have. It's probably not going to happen. Because
we only finished the last 2 years in this week.
I think it's just the last year.
Yeah, and we're in our 6th year, so it's maybe not the biggest thing we've ever had.
So yeah. So it is a goal to finish because it will give your programmers and drive team time to work on the robots, practice the robots, but plan to not have it done. And on the note of programmers, have your programmers work on the chassis as soon as it's installed. That way you have your programmers and, well, the drive team and everybody really has something to work off of, even if the robot isn't fully complete.
Okay, this is week 6. It's the final stretch. You've been crossing your fingers saying, let's hope that this robot's done, because if it's not, well, whoops. So this is when last minute fixes are going to be going around. You're going to be hoping that everything you put together, everything's up and running. And this is when you want to help your programmers at all costs. If there's no code in that robot, it doesn't move, and now it's just a really pretty robot that doesn't move. And let's face it, you want a moving robot on the floor. The success is a rolling robot on the floor. So we want to help your programmers at all costs. Now, drive team practice isn't crucial. It's a great thing to have that your drivers are familiar with the robot, but it is not crucial. You want to find the limits of your robot, and that's through testing it. That way, if you're on the field, you don't want to find out through trial and error that, well, if you do this, the robot dead sticks something, or we lose complete control. You want to know what your robot can and can't do before you're on that competition floor. That way, you can operate to the best of your ability. Now, in previous years, we would recommend you guys to not procrastinate on building a crate, but now, ever since Locomotion, we do a bag intake system. There's another presentation on that later. Essentially, the most basic form, you take your robot, put it in a giant plastic bag, seal it off, and get it notarized. But as a side note, for nationals, for the teams that do go to nationals, they do require a crate. So if you're going there, make sure you don't procrastinate on building a crate, because you're going to need to ship the robot on a certain day, and you need something to ship it in, because sending it naked is honestly a favorite thing for anyone. Now, remember, success is rolling a robot on the floor. If you build a robot to play heavy offense or heavy defense, or a good combination of the two, a successful team is a team that can do that. So if you build your robot to perform a function, make sure your robot can perform that function. That's what you're going to really strive for in these 6 weeks.
Now, after your 6 grueling weeks to build and everything's done, and your robot's done, it's just time to relax, right? Well, that's actually really incorrect. You're going to be working now more than ever. You're going to have scouting meetings and drive team meetings and marketing meetings. Now, in the scouting meetings, you're going to want to start drafting a scouting sheet. That'll make it more efficient when you actually get down to the competition. The scouts will be looking at the robots instead of their pace. Now, on Chief Scout Plan Blue Alliance, they have tons of information on all the robots you might be up against. It'll show you how teams have done in previous competitions or how they've done in previous years. All of them can be very useful knowledge for the competition you're about to go into. And try to do as much as you can as possible without the robot, whether that be actually finally finishing your programming or getting the drive team ready for the competition ahead of them. Now, it's very useful to make sub-teams inside your own team, whereas you have the drive team, the scouting team, and the pit crew. Also, you have the spirit team that'll be up in the crowd cheering for you. Now, in these teams, they need to know exactly where they need to be during the competition at all times. You don't want to drive someone in the drive team up in the stands right before a competition. You're just going to be very disorganized, and it's not going to be helpful. So, now, time management is truly key. You want to have everything by a day-to-day basis. If you start pushing things back, it's going to get crazy, and you're going to find that you don't finish things. You're going to go to the competition not at your full potential. But all in all, you really can relax, because this is going to be fun work, as long as you stay on task.
Alright, it is the competition. You finally arrived and you are thunderstruck. At the competition, the first thing to keep in mind and always remember is gracious professionalism is key. If another team is asking for help, or whether it be with experience or tools or just time, help them. Other teams will do the same for you. It is a big motto of purpose. Now, when you arrive at competition, the first thing you want to do once you get to your pit, well, after organizing a little bit, is assembling your robot. During this time, this involves getting onto the practice field as soon as possible and start testing the limits on your robot and getting your drivers practice and your programmers checking their code, as well as adding any final touches to the mechanical side of your robot, whether it be, adding some bracing here and there or, finishing your robot competition. During the competition time, really, there is a shift of power between the mechanical people and the drive team and scouts. Now, this is a good thing, and if you are on the mechanical side, embrace it. It's not a bad thing that the scouts and drive team are having all the power now because, well, they should know what they're doing. It's really what they're here for. For a female kicker on the drive team that composes of drivers, a coach, and then usually the last couple of years, human player. For the actual drivers, listen to your scouts. They should know what they're doing most of the time, if not always. They usually have a plan in mind. Listen to them. If you don't listen to your scouts, you're going to go out going crazy. And for the scouts, have a simple plan for your match. Simple is always better. Like we said, 4 times now? Yeah, close enough. Always, have simple plans. It's always a good thing. For the few people who are still on mechanical, the rest of them will go over to cheering or scouting. It is a small group of 5 or 6 core builders that will be your pit crew. This includes the tool master. Now, these people are usually going to be in the pit, which is a 10 by 10 area each team has, to have their tools and their robot and their extra parts and their tables, and battery charge dish, and everything. So it's a small area. Remember, you don't want a ton of people in there, so have a small group of 5 or 6 people. These people have to be ready for anything and everything, whether it be just changing a battery between matches or having something break, whether it be something small like all of the bracing or an axle on every wheel. Have these people be ready for that and have them be organized and just prepared for this. Also, have plenty of spare parts. You are allowed 40 pounds worth of parts to bring into each competition. Bring this in because you never know what's going to happen on the field and you have to be prepared.
Now, the second half of the competition, like Nathan said, is going to be scouting. And people, this is really your time to shine. We personally prefer to do the divide and conquer technique, where you have small groups go down and descend upon the pit and check every single team and every single robot. Now, if possible, redundancy is best. If you can check the teams once, twice, 3 times if possible, the more information you get, the more lines you're going to be able to connect, and the information is just going to come together. Now, the importance of seeing practice rounds can be, you only have to take it with a grain of salt, because there's going to be teams that are going to be ready and raring and playing on every single match they have, and they'll get that great drive practice that they really need. But there's going to be a lot of teams that are still fixing their robots, and they're going to miss out on all of it and learn during the qualification matches. So like I said, you just have to take it with a grain of salt. Now, again, like Nathan said, you have to formulate a basic plan on every match you play. How you're going to play in each match is very important. You have 2 other people you're going to be with, and you have to cooperate with them fully. You also have to know the pros and cons of the people you're against. If you don't know the other team you're up against, you may underestimate their ability and lose your match. Now, during the qualification matches, you're going to see juggernaut or powerhouse teams start to arrive. You want to make a relationship with them as soon as possible. The better they see you as, the more chances you can get picked. And now, after you've done all the qualification matches, there's going to be the 8 top-seeded teams. And those teams are actually going to pick their own alliances that will solidify for the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the final matches. You may not make it into the 8 top-seeded alliances, but you always want to plan for it. Before the alliance picks, you want to make up a list of at least 24 robots that you would want to be paired with. You never know if you do get picked, if they don't have a third pick or not. And hopefully you can bring that to the table. All in all, you want to be prepared for scouting because it's the entire other half of the competition, and if you don't fill that out, you're going to fail your match. As you can see right here, this is a previous scouting sheet from a previous year. If you look closely, it's quite organized and short to the point. You don't want to spend too much time on these because you want to get as much information as you can from the robot. If you're just jotting down notes all the time, you're not going to get to all the robots, and you're going to miss information.
Now, some things to keep in mind for all these weeks, whether it's your build season, whether it's competition, or even after competition, all of these things for robotics. Always remember gracious professionalism. That's the motto at first. And what it means is, an example is during competition season. When you're on the competition floor, compete like crazy. That's what you're there to do. You're there to compete. But when you're off the competition floor, have fun like crazy, because this is really what it's all about. It's not there to completely dominate and just steamroll anyone and everyone. Now, it's really easy to have happen and have this get forgotten, but school must come first. Now, this is a lot of fun, so you might just push it off the side, but it can be a real killer if you forget about it. Just keep in mind, school does come first, make sure you're on top of that before robotics. Like I said before, success is a rolling robot on the floor. That doesn't mean going and winning all the awards. Doesn't mean winning first place chairman's engineering inspiration. Success is a rolling robot. A robot that can go on the floor, and if you say, I want to play heavy defense, you can play heavy defense well. That's a successful team, not winning in first place like all these other sports you have out there. This is not like a sport. It's not like anything else you've ever seen. Now, a tip to all you mentors out there. This is a kid's work. You might want to over-dominate and take control of everything, but it's really the kid's position to do all the work, and this is their team. And for the kids out there, if you have an overbearing mentor that's taking control and just completely dominating everything, tell them, this is our competition, this is our robot, this is our team. It's our place to win or our place to lose. It's really up to us to do it because, well, the reason we're doing this is for us to learn all this. Now, veterans, you want to bring up your rookie members because you're going to be gone in a few years. And if you leave and you knew everything and now you're gone, you're either going back to being on the first your team, but everything's going to be dead in the water. So you don't want to dominate all the groups. You want to be, well, you don't want to dominate everything, but you want to be well versed. And what I mean by that is make sure that everyone knows what they're doing. So if you're a veteran and you're going up there and you're working on things really well, you know what's doing, or know what's going on, if you have other people in the background just standing there not sure what to do, that's not a good thing. What you want to do is bring those rookie members or just people that don't know what's going on, bring them in, show them what you're doing, show them how to do it, so that way they can take control later. Now, for competition season, you're going to be thinking, okay, a lot of high energy, got to be running at the highest fastest possible. Let's drink all the energy drinks. Let's get all the monsters and all the knobs out there. That sounds on paper like a good idea, but in fact, it's a really bad idea. What that can happen is, yeah, you'll have a good energy buzz for, I don't know, 20 minutes, and you'll have an energy crash for about 2 hours. That's when you go killer for teams. Your driver, like Tyler said earlier, could fall asleep in the stand. So we got a match with our driver. He's in the nosebleed section, just passed on the floor. Well, that's not a good thing, is it? So, you want to watch out for energy drinks. Really, the best thing is to keep away from them. They can really be a killer for teams. Now, a fact you're going to have to embrace because there's no avoiding it is blood will flow. I'm sorry, we can't avoid it. I wish we could, but it's a fact. Accept it, move on, make it a fact of Band-Aid. And keep on building the robot, keep on competing, keep on having fun. Now, first is not all work and no play. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of stuff. All this entire guide sounds like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. Because that's not what it's all about. It's not about doing all this work. It's about having fun. Have a good balance between both of those aspects. This is a lot of work, and it's also a lot of fun. And on top of all these things, you want to keep in mind and make sure that you don't have happen. It's just don't panic. It's a really good key to have. It's something that keeps you well together.
Yeah, I know, your robot may be a little overweight.
Yeah, it's possible. And the driver could fall asleep.
And you have your skeleton just not present.
Yeah, your robot may be dead sick in a match.
Your robot could actually shorten the match, making you can't even compete because it's not first regulation state.
And you have nothing on any of the robots or their teams.
And your robot chassis is completely broken.
Good. Don't panic, guys. Really, keep you together, make things well collaborated, and just make it easy to get through. It's not that bad. Don't panic.
Any questions?
Yeah. Chris, do we have any from the online audience?
Nobody has typed one up. We're having a couple of technical issues, but we're working on those. But I would like you guys to talk about weighing the parts and elaborate on that, because that's a really big deal for newer teams. Talk about how we go through that and how many times we weigh our parts.
Alright, during the build season, every couple days even, we basically just take a scale, put a piece of plywood on there, and then take everything we may or even may not use, and put it on the scale, and then weigh. The limit is 120 pounds, and if we go over this, it ends up having to just remove entire mechanisms if you're that far over, or just hacksawing pieces off. It happens every year. I remember one team was actually 40 pounds overweight, I believe. 60 pounds overweight, carried down. And they couldn't compete. So you want to weigh every few days even, and make sure you're never going over that limit. That includes also make sure you're not going over the height limit or any size restrictions as well.
I've seen happen on competitions. I've heard about this. I've seen it. A robot comes up and the judge says your robot's too heavy. They go back to their table, they hand you a hacksaw and say, cut off enough weight. It's pretty scary because it's like, okay, that's 6 weeks of us pouring our blood and soul into this. Okay, cut it off. So make sure that you don't get into that situation. It's bad, it can be heartbreaking.
Yeah, and to prevent this, what you really want to do is, like with height and weight management, you want to make it so you're a little under, always. Try and make it so you're under, because you are going to hit it after you finalize your robot.
You got any more questions? Questions? Thank you for checking.
From a safety perspective, I notice when I go to tournaments, everybody's wearing goggles. Is there anything else that you guys recommend safety-wise? Is there a safety point of contact that you guys assign? Or
Get a safety.
We have a safety captain.
You want to designate a safety captain, and specifically.
There is a safety award. Some teams they usually pass out safety kits with baking soda in case the battery spills, or just have kits with band-aids, or...
Yeah, there's good capitalism on safety. The reason why these teams do it, really big motive that first found is if they have a safety award, well, teams are going to want to do the safety stuff, besides the fact that it's like threatening things. So it's like sport, right? I know. But yeah, first does take measures to have safety. They do require safety glasses in the pits at all times, so if you have safety glasses, they do hand them out, but they're kind of large, bulky ones.
So bring your own,
Yeah, also they don't allow drinks in the pits, that way in case of a spill, some electrical go wrong work, you just move the robot. No running with scissors.
Without any gear.
I'm careful to tell you that you shouldn't be in the pits. I mean,
How many kids do you have minimal for scouting? What do you think would be the minimal that any team should devote to scouting?
The minimal will
Small team, no.
yes, to be completely honest. But if you have a small team, and granted you're going to have 5 or 6 people in the pit, and then you're going to have another 3 or 4, for the driving and whatnot. I mean, I would really push for at least 12. I mean, 12 is the best you can get at least, and then expand on it. And make sure those people are, your core members that know exactly what they're doing. You don't want to just draw people in who were assigned to be in the pit crew, and then you realize you have too many people. You just bring them in. I mean, you can, but you really need to give them a very fast rundown of what they need to know.
So if the team only has 4 people, 6 people on scouting, what would you recommend them to do?
They only have 4 people?
Correct. The teams are just forming now. That may be all that they have in the hand. So how can we direct them to do a good job of scouting skills with maybe only 4 or 6 people? What do they have to do?
You have to be able to judge more than one robot at a time, and you also want to prioritize which robots you want to look at. So if you find out that these people are exactly like your robot and they wouldn't help you in this match, like you don't want 2 defensive picks, you might want to not watch them and focus on another robot. And then you also want to have prerequisites, as in the scouting sheet, that'll make things go much faster and hopefully make it smoother for that small group of people to actually get things done. So then they don't have to think up the things their own. The ideas themselves, they just can go off the sheet they have.
Any questions? Okay. Sounds really good. Let's give them a hand, you guys. The next presentation that we're going to do is going to be on drivetrain. We're going to have lots of mechanisms that we can show you, and a little bit about the electrical, how to get those drivetrains up and running. But we're going to take about a 3 to 5 minute break here. We're going to work a little bit on the audio to get a little bit more depth to it, and we'll be back very shortly. Thanks a lot.